And a TGIF, everybody. Welcome into the First Call podcast. Alongside our guest handicapper this week, Scott Shapiro. I'm Jeremy Plonk. March Madness in the air. Scott's happy as Wisconsin Badgers won yesterday. Jeff Siegel's happy as UCLA Bruins won. I'm waiting for a 9:30 tip-off tonight for the Sooners. So let's see if we can continue a good first round for the home team here on the podcast. Hopefully your bracket looks good, and hopefully your picks look even better this weekend in horse racing, Mr. Shapiro. We're going to put you to the test with 8 races this week.
Yeah, this is a really fun week when you combine the hoops with the horses. It heats up big time in both college basketball and, of course, on the Derby Trail where we get the first 100 points to the winter races in Louisiana and Turfway. Good racing throughout the country. That's where the headliners are. And, it was nice to see Wisconsin play well in the first round. It was also nice to see Jeff UCLA take care of business for him. I know he cares about them a little bit, so happy to see them advance.
Yes. Yeah, I texted with him yesterday. Hopefully we'll get Jeff back with us in the mix here pretty soon. We're going to start things off down at Gulfstream, and we're going to shift out to Santa Anita. And then, of course, the two big tracks this weekend in terms of the major Derby preps, Fairgrounds and Turfway. A note, Fairgrounds and Turfway are going to team up for what they're calling the Bayou Bluegrass All Stakes Pick 5. You get all those races basically analyzed here on the podcast today. And Scott's also got a written blog for his strategies at news.first.com and at expressbet.com. So be sure to check out his Bayou Bluegrass Bayou Pick 5 analysis for those big races. For those of you watching on our video channels on X or on YouTube, be sure to like and share this out. Comment in the comment section for sure. Help us grow the audience for the First Call podcast. And also be sure, if you are on our traditional audio channels, to listen up, because we've got the schedule of races we're about to handicap here for you right now. We're going to start off with the Texas Glitter for turf sprinters at Gulfstream. That'll be our first handicapping challenge in race number 7 there at Gulfstream. To Santa Anita for the San Luis race, 7th on the card there on the turf. To Fairgrounds, we'll give you a look at 3 of the 6, 7, 8 stakes races on the big card down there. The 3 that we're going to focus on are the New Orleans Classic, the Fairgrounds Oaks, and the Louisiana Derby. We'll go to Turfway Park on their big day of the racing year for the Kentucky Cup Classic, the Bourbonnette Oaks on the Kentucky Oaks Trail, and then the Jeff Ruby for 3-year-olds trying to make their way to the Kentucky Derby. Reminder, when you bet with First Bet and Express Bet on all the Kentucky Derby preps all the way through the Lexington Stakes in mid-April, we've got a $10 money-back special. So if your win bet finishes 2nd or 3rd in any of the Kentucky Derby preps, you'll get up to $10 back in the form of wagering credits into your account. So Louisiana Derby, Jeff Ruby, both have that $10 money-back special coming up on Saturday. Also want to remind you, playing this weekend, Sundays at Santa Anita throughout the month of March, we have a $2 million first rewards points hit and split on the late pick 4s every Sunday at Santa Anita. Of course, on Thursdays, we do that same promo, 2 million first rewards points hit and split on the late pick 4 at Gulfstream. So Gulfstream Thursdays, Santa Anita Sundays. Be sure to play those late pick 4s with First Bet and Express Bet. If you'd like to play the handicapping tournament scene this weekend, the $500 Santa Anita Challenge is on Saturday at Express Bet as well. And certainly want to say congratulations to everybody who played and had success in the National Horse Players Championship last weekend in Las Vegas. I know 2 of the players that we qualified through Express Bet ended up in the top 6. Congratulations to those guys and everybody who played in the NHC and played for more than $4 million in cash and prizes. All right, Scott, let's try to get our share of $4 million this weekend. We're going to take down some winners here. Starting off with the Texas Glitter Stakes. It's race number 7 on the card at Gulfstream. 5/8 of a mile on the turf. The Texas Glitter, named for the Todd Pletcher turf sprinter, 1999 to 2002. He did some pretty good things down at Gulfstream. Turf sprint stakes winner, as well as a dirt stakes winner. Texas Glitter, surface versatile, but these are basically horses who are focused on being turf sprinters. One of them was one of the top 2-year-old turf sprinters we saw in the U.S. last year in just one engagement, the Royal Palm Juvenile, Galbadon. Well, he solidified his reputation by going to the Windsor Castle Stakes at Royal Ascot and running a bang-up second overseas last year for Jose D'Angelo. We haven't seen Gabaldon since, but when we last saw him in the U.S.,
up front, it's Gabaldon giving all the speed on the top end. Governor Sam right alongside. They drilled a quarter, 21-3. They have 3 on Encanto, who tries to rally from there. Garden of War on the outside. Reach for the rose at the rail. There's an eighth of a mile to go. It's Jaramillo and Gabaldon in front by 2, but his strides are shortening. Encanto starts to surge. In between horses, Reach for the rose outside. Bright Skittle. Gabaldon needs the wire, and he finds it.
So is it Gabaldon in the comeback, Scott, here in the Texas Glitter? Are you going to try to find somebody to upend him in his 3-year-old return?
Very impressive debut, kind of surprising that field of 11 in the Royal Palm to earn that spot overseas at 16.5 to 1, but then went overseas and ran a good race. The layoff just makes him tough to trust at a short price from a gambling perspective. Would I be surprised at all if he runs a huge race? No, because we saw him do so, JP, once again, on debut. So clearly he's capable of running off a layoff or running fresh. But I do prefer the second choice on the in the morning line, number 6, No Evidence, 2 to 1, Christophe Clement runner. This horse has raced twice himself. Has the recency edge, though. Debuted in the summer at Saratoga and ran a good third. Excuse me, but wasn't seen since then. Clearly, he was lugging in. There was a lot of learning to do, and Clement probably gave him some time. Maybe there were some issues as well, but he came back and ran a real bang-up race, beating a horse for Dale Romans and came back to win in his next start. It looks like No Evidence to me might be better, but I prefer the recency more than anything to the favorite on the morning line in Gabaldon.
He's just inside of Gabaldon. They're going to be the 2 outside runners. I like speed in short field turf sprints. I mean, turf sprints sometimes will really cook and set up for closers. In the big fields, you got to get through and negotiate the traffic. But I think in short fields like this, where we've only got, 7 entered in here, I think the fastest horse typically wins these. And so these 2 to the outside, you got an aggressive jockey like Paco Lopez. Jaramillo takes a backseat to few when it comes to going to the front either. I think these 2 are going to be very aggressive, and we'll see what Lopez can do riding kind of strategically against Gabaldon and Jaramillo going into that short run into the turn. And if he can't kind of get a little bit of edge being inside of that runner, cutting the corner and coming off the corner, I agree. I like No Evidence in here to pull the upset. Haven't seen enough of Gabaldon in the morning to know in terms of workouts. His workout tab a little spotty. I mean, it's not exactly like prime on. You want to see a horse coming off a layoff like this with 6 workouts right on cue every 6 or 7 days. Then they're exactly where they want to be. He's had a little bit of a gap in the workout tab, only 5 published workouts showing. So maybe Gabaldon's a little bit short. You don't have to be too fit, though, to go 5/8 of a mile. You just got to be sharp. So I expect he'll run well. But like you, I'm going to take my shot with No Evidence there in the Texas Glitter Stakes. Let's go from Gulfstream to Santa Anita. And, of course, anytime you go Gulfstream to Santa Anita on a Saturday, I want to remind you about the Coast to Coast Pick 5. Of course, that's offered every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Low takeout, $1 minimum, Coast to Coast Pick 5. Great gambling opportunity for you there. The San Luis Race Stakes is the feature race Saturday at Santa Anita, and that will be the one that we spotlight here from the Great Race Place. And we've got a field of 8 in here as we go on the turf at a marathon distance here stateside at 1.5 miles on the grass. How do you see this San Luis race shaking out? You got 3 Phil D'Amatos in there. I had a hard time separating them.
Yeah, this is about the polar opposite of a 5-furlong turf sprint, other than that it's on the same surface, 1.5 miles plotters, if you will. And yeah, Phil D'Amato obviously holds a strong hand. I look back, I was surprised that he hasn't won this race more than once. I think he won it 2 years ago with Acclimate, but definitely a guy that's very capable in these types of races out there, to say the least. You've got the most Gold Phoenix is the class of the field. He finished 4th in the Breeders' Cup Turf. He brings the strongest resume in, but he hasn't raced since the Breeders' Cup Turf. And I think he probably wants, it's pretty safe to say, he might, 1.5 miles is fine, but maybe he wants a little shorter ultimately. This might be a setup spot for him. Then you've got Easter, who is fit, but doesn't like to win. His last win came in December of 2023, which was on opening day there in the San Gabriel. So I thought maybe that Divine Propos will maybe get potentially overlooked. Actually, I made that pick before I saw the morning line, assuming he's the third price of those 3. But either way, he was caught wide last time and had to make a middle move into a race where there goes Harvard was on the front end. That was 1.25 miles in the San Marcos. Getting more distance, I don't think will hurt. So second off the bench, and maybe this is his day for Phil D'Amato, with Gold Phoenix being more set up for the future and just me not trusting Easter.
He was a winner last summer at Del Mar. Let's see if he can get back to his winning
second.
ways.
Davine Propo in the white blinkers now looks dangerous. Here comes Davine Propo in the white blinkers to take the lead at the top of the lane. And Old Pal has joined the fray too on the outside behind that awfully naughty Maltese Falcon. They come for home. Davine Propo is the leader. Old Pal, awfully naughty coming fast. Awfully naughty comes to take on Davine Propo, but Davine Propo's got more left. And Davine Propo wins smartly. Awfully naughty second. Old Pal.
I don't like to fancy myself for doing the research and the homework, but I haven't on this one. But I'm just going to go off of top of my head here. Gold Phoenix's resume is very interesting. This is the horse who's finished top 4 in the Breeders' Cup Turf twice. I mean, how many American turf horses have finished in the top 4 of the Breeders' Cup Turf twice? I mean, English Channel obviously comes to mind, but there aren't many. I mean, it's, nobody's ever going to mistake him as one of the top turf horses of his generation, much less of any Breeders' Cup era or anything like that. But there's something to be said for back-to-back top 4 finishes in the Breeders' Cup Turf.
Without question, and that's why I said he was the class of the field, and obviously the distance isn't going to be an issue. Kyle Frey, who's been on board him in his last 5 starts, will be back aboard. Was able to look, and sorry for the lack of morning line preparation there, but Davine Propo definitely the third choice of the morning lines there. So at least my early week preparation for this produced the actual price of the 3.
Yeah, sometimes you think ahead and you're correct in that respect. We'll see how the betting goes. I agree, though. I think he'll be the third choice of the D'Amatos when the public gets their say in there. I think the other 2, Easter would be the second choice of, and then Gold Phoenix will probably be bet lowest amongst that group. Let's go from Santa Anita now and switch gears to one of the big circuits of the weekend at Fairgrounds. So Fairgrounds has a big day of racing for Louisiana Derby Day. It always is an important day on the spring calendar, and it's getting more important in recent years. The Fairgrounds races have had a major impact on the Kentucky Oaks. They've had a major impact on races like the Turf Classic at Churchill Downs, the Stephen Foster, also, of course, the Louisiana Derby to the Kentucky Derby connection. We'll talk about that when we get to race 12, the Louisiana Derby. But the first race we're going to handicap at Fairgrounds on Saturday will be the New Orleans Classic, the first of 3 that we'll take a look at. The New Orleans Classic is 1 1/8 miles on the main track. Grade 2 here for a purse of, what are we going for in this one? About 500,000? That line?
500
yeah, 500. Yeah, so plenty of money on the line. It's a matter of who wants to run, though, against the potentially big favorite in here, Sierra Leone. He's back for the first time since winning the Breeders' Cup Classic. Marcus Hirsch of Daily Racing Form has been busy on the phone in the backstretch, I'm sure, over recent days, because who's staying and who's going has been a lot of reporting to handle. We expect Kinetic to scratch out of this race in the New Orleans Classic. We could look at a scratch of Uno Mas Bourbon as well. Tarantino. There's also the Essex handicapping run at Oaklawn, so that's drawing some of these horses who were cross-entered. Bishop's Bay may also scratch, so we could be looking at as many as 4 scratches out of this race. Still some quality runners in here with Hall of Fame, with Corabino Omaide. You've got some runners who can give a challenge to the big one, Sierra Leone. And then you've got the Louisiana-bred legend, Touch Upon a Star, a winner in 14 of 20, and obviously one who's going to be setting the tone in here. Of course, the faster they go, the better for Sierra Leone. So, Scott, give me your thoughts. Sierra Leone on his comeback bid. Do we try to just take this free space, or do we try to beat him?
Well, I think the horses coming out did not help the chances of Sierra Leone, although you could argue it'll be less horses for Flavien Prat to be able to navigate through as he tries to make a run. But you definitely lost the potential pace up front, even though we will still should have some. He's got Hall of Fame down on the inside. And like you said, I think Touch Upon a Star, the obvious pace setter, with Maycock's Bay, though, right to his inside. So you would expect the pace, to be honest. That would benefit a horse, obviously, like Sierra Leone. He's the clear one to beat. The 2 things that concern me at a short price, he's got bigger fish to fry. This is obviously not the goal of mile and 3/16 off the bench at Louisiana. And let's not forget that this horse was not a win machine before he won the Breeders' Cup Classic. In fact, I've been known to maybe say that he was a terrible bet at times, and he was maybe, but not. You got your money if you singled him or bet him in the on Breeders' Cup Day. You disagree with me, but so there's questions about his will to win. I expect him to have a big year. They're bringing him back here. I just don't think he's a great wager. I think I prefer a horse or two that will get the jump on him. I don't know. Where did you land on him?
I thought the pace set up for him, and he just looked like he'd outclass him in the end. But there's some other, there's obviously some other horses in here. And at a mile and an eighth, you never know. That far of a trip first time back is not easy on any horse. A mile and an eighth is a serious run with a long stretch. And we've seen this horse have trouble. He kind of got it together towards the end of the year with the bearing in nonsense, where he's lugging into the left all the time. With a long stretch run like that, if he gets a little bit tired on his leads, and he could start lugging around in the stretch and maybe be susceptible. But I defaulted back to him here. Just the class of the horse who won the Breeders' Cup Classic. To me, not a very creative pick, but I think if he runs back to anywhere close to this race.
Around the far turn, Fierceness. Fierceness has taken over the lead. Newgate on the attack. Sierra Leone is revving up on the far outside with a burst toward the front runners as they come to the top of the stretch. And they're into the stretch. And Sierra Leone has circled up on the outside to take the lead. Fierceness battles on second. Newgate behind them. Forever Young on the far outside. Sierra Leone. Fierceness digs in. Newgate. Forever Young. Sierra Leone close to home. Sierra Leone does it in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Fierceness was second. Forever Young was third. Newgate fourth. And then came Senor Bluskin.
He'll be LASIK's first time in his career now as a 4-year-old. Remember all those Derby preps and through the Triple Crown races in the Breeders' Cup, not eligible for LASIK's in those races. Now he can run with LASIK's here in Louisiana in the New Orleans Classic. So it'll be first time LASIK's for Sierra Leone. If he's going to get beat, though, Scott, I know you've got one that you want to take a shot with.
That's right. And I would have not believed you if you told me I was going to try to beat Sierra Leone and just come back with a Japanese bred a few months ago, maybe. But I'm going to do just that with Corabino. Oh, my day. Third off the bench for Robertino Diodoro and owner and breeder Perry Martin, if you remember him, racing fans. But, this horse is really outrun his odds in 2 preps for this race. The grade 3 Louisiana running good second at almost 15-1 to hit show. And then coming back on an inside speed favoring racetrack, he was up and on the pace, but he was on the outside and was still able to almost beat Hall of Fame in there, who got the pocket trip. He hasn't won over this track in 3 starts. The blinkers come off. Maybe that'll help him relax off of what we expect at least to be an honest early pace. I prefer that just off of it to relax, off of him to relax and see how that goes. But he should probably be the third choice in here at the very least, I would think. And I think he's got the recency edge, especially over his main rival in Sierra Leone.
All right. So it's Corabino Omade, the top choice in there for Robertino Diodoro and Scott Shapiro's play in the New Orleans Classic. That's race number 9, Saturday at the Fairgrounds. 10th on the card. We won't handicap here, but want to remind you that the 10th, the Mervyn Muniz Memorial, is the Express Bet race of the week. So you can get my analysis for that race on the blog section at expressbet.com and at news.first.com. So be sure to check that out, and also sign up for the email newsletter with Express Bet and First Bet, and you get that race of the week sent to your inbox each and every week. Spirit of St. Louis, winner of the Pegasus World Cup Turf, back in that race. The Mervyn Muniz could be a big day for Chad Brown. He's got the 9th race with Sierra Leone. He's got the 10th race with Spirit of St. Louis. To the 11th, we'll go next and put Scott to the test for the Fairgrounds Oaks. A mile and a 16th there. This race has had a big impact in the last 10, 15 years with the Kentucky Oaks. Probably as important as any prep on the trail towards the Kentucky Oaks. You think of this one in the Ashland Stakes coming up at Keeneland in a couple of weeks. Fairgrounds Oaks, grade 2, $400,000. We've got a filly in here who everybody has tabbed right now as the favorite for the Kentucky Oaks. She's been just unbelievably good in her career to this point. Good Cheer, 5 for 5, never within 2.5 lengths. Average margin of victory for her is somewhere in the ballpark of about 8 or 9 lengths. She's got a 17-length win on the ledger. Is Good Cheer just going to run through this after like she did in the Rachel Alexander? Or do we have one to watch in here, Scott?
Well, it's hard to knock a horse that's 5 for 5 and does so from off the pace, so doesn't even have things easy on the front end. But a lot of people would have said last time was the time to be Good Cheer first off the layoff, but that field really shrunk down, as you can see, to a field of 4.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Goel's Delight was a legitimate contender, but I think there's at least one, if not two, that are more legitimate in here, or at least have more upside.
Mm-hmm.
So, the thing that discourages me about Good Cheer, and there's arguments to be made on why, especially last time, she wasn't maybe, cranked for, her best effort, but no improvement on her races recently, just the same number. And that kind of concerns, regardless of where you look. I'm a thoroughgraph guy, consistently running those 5s on thoroughgraph, not moving forward. That concerns me. Eventually, if you're not moving forward, you're going to move backwards. So at a very short price, that's my knock on Good Cheer. That's, who am I going to try to beat her with? I think the options are somewhat limited because she's probably going to run a race, at least to some extent, and, come with some run. I'm going to try to get the jump on her with the up-and-comer number 3, Ahava, the full or half-sister to star sprinter for the same connections, Vava. Ahava obviously has to take a big step up here and prove herself. Not only does she take on winners for the first time in a graded stakes race, but she tries 2 turns after just 1 6-furlong race. But this barn, when they spot horses, their top horses, they very rarely seem to not fire and under-deliver. They're putting her in this spot tells me a lot about what they think of her, and she was very impressive on debut, doing very little wrong other than getting out of the gate a little bit slow from the inside. But she's got a lot of upside here, and I'm hoping she can prove it on Saturday.
Ahava's the new face in here. Let's give the fans a chance to see her and hear John Dooley's call of her debut win in a 6-furlong
as
sprint.
As these maiden 3-year-old fillies straighten away, it's Ahava in charge. Ahava leads off the turn from Unwavering Trust with Girls Rock and then Daring Madison the half mile. For Ahava, 45.29 seconds, 1 furlong to go. Ahava, the daughter of City of Light, tested by Unwavering Trust, who's charging hard on the outside. It's Ahava, sticking to her guns for Jose Ortiz. Unwavering Trust, gamely on the outside. Daring Madison is third to this newcomer, Ahava. Debuts on top and holds Unwavering Trust. Girls.
Question will be the quickness of stepping up this fast from a 6-furlong race, the suddenness of it, not necessarily on timing. That back race was February 15th, so it's 5 weeks. The timing is good, but the suddenness of stepping up in class. The other thing would be the distance at a mile and a 16. She's going from 6 furlongs to the mile and a 16th. Of course, her half-sister Vava, well known as just a lights-out runner at 7/8 of a mile around 1 turn. She's by City of Light, though, and City of Light stretched out just fine, won the Pegasus World Cup at a mile and an 1/8. This is only a mile and a 16. She's got the 3-hole. There's no speed inside of her with the 1. I don't think Goals Delight is nearly as fast as she could be in here. So she should be able to clear over, get the rail, and get the easiest trip you can get for a mile and a 16th, getting to the fence. Jose Ortiz has done nothing wrong at this meet. He rides Ahava. What a season. 29% winners for a runaway leader in the jockey standings at an A meet or at least a B+ meet like Fairgrounds. That's an exceptional performance he's had this winter, Scott.
Without question, he decided to shift his tack and go elsewhere. He had been in Florida down with his brother, amongst other top riders at Gulfstream Park for a number of years, but made the decision now that he's going to be in Kentucky full-time to go down to Fairgrounds to ride a lot of these types of horses that a lot of the big barns not only like to debut and run there early, but really like to train at Fairgrounds over that track in the mornings there. Also a very good environment to have the horses in the winter, from what I understand, speaking to some veteran trainers. So just a good overall situation for Jose to get himself in. It's probably going to help his situation in Kentucky over the next 6 months or so.
All right, we're a couple races into your handicapping here at Fairgrounds. I'm getting the sense that you don't want to take chalk, right? Sierra Leone, let's beat them. Good Cheer, let's beat them. So now we get to the main event of the day, the Louisiana Derby. And I can't imagine you're going to take the chalk in here then if you're not taking the other two.
You're a smart man, JP. You've been around the block. But, yeah, taking some swings this week. I think it's one of those days where, the favorites
That's
can
handicapping. Past performances.
Certainly. But, you speak of the favorite in John Hancock in the Louisiana Derby, who's 3-1. He's done nothing wrong so far. Maybe surprised the barn a little bit, got off to a little bit of a late start. But I will say, first and foremost, I am not landing on the chalk in this race as well. How about you?
All right. I know you've got some prices in here. And so you're more creative in here. I like John Hancock. I've loved that race at the Sam F. Davis all winter. Nobody else seems to have. It paid me back in Owen Almighty coming back and winning the Tampa Bay Derby. So I think it's a pretty key race. I think Poster out of that race. We'll talk about him coming up a little bit later. I think the Sam F. Davis, which was running stakes record time, was a race that's much better than the number may suggest. I think John Hancock's pretty darn good. There's going to be a lot of pace in here, though. And unless the track is, really fair, we tend to think speed holds up on these big race days, right? The track usually gets souped up. They run big times. It's really tightened. So speed could still hold, but there is a lot of pace in this race. When you look at Yinzer, he can really cook in here. Built with blinkers on is not going to take many back seats in here. I think he's going to be up. Vassimo with blinkers on is going to be right up into the mix. Furio's got speed towards the outside. I think there's plenty of pace in here. So there's going to be a challenge for John Hancock. I still think he's going to prove best in here, but I think the horse from off the pace to worry about in here would probably be Hypnus and Chunk of Gold. Those are the two closers I think are probably the biggest threats in here late. How do you see it shaking out?
Yeah, you also have Caldera, who's shown more speed with blinkers, maybe not fast enough to go at the top, but it'll be right up and on the pace. I'm going to play for the pace to collapse, and I've definitely, to your point, been caught doing so on big days unsuccessfully, where you'll see a lot of speed and just the best of the speed or the speed on the right part of the track ends up winning the race that day. But I do like Hypnus most in here. Hypnus, has a lot to prove because his lone big effort was over the off track and his race in the Rebel was a troubled trip. So he really hasn't done it yet if you really want to be critical of him. But that was on Lecomte Day, his maiden breaker. I know it was over an off track. The field hasn't turned out quite as strong as it looked like that day, but that's kind of the well-meant horses that Barnes are hoping to get to the Risen Star in the Louisiana Derby. And he ran right by him on debut.
Right.
I think he's got unlimited upside still at this point and the right rider for a race that with the far outside draw and a race that would have pace. Brian Hernandez Jr., JP, is just going to angle over right away, look to save ground and come with a run, hopefully with less trouble or a lot less than in the Rebel.
Yeah, and you remember back in that race, January 18th at Fairground 21 on debut, that was the same day as the Lecomte, as you mentioned. He went 4 lengths faster than the Lecomte in that win. We can dispute whether the track got better or worse throughout the day, but facts are facts in that respect, that he went quicker than the Lecomte Stakes. So he is a horse who's got a lot of potential. Let's go back to that debut win in the slop at Fairground.
Short lead as Doroteo looks to get level. Pretty capable to the inside Shadow Coast. Let's see, Global Quote is unwinding on the far outside. Yinzer and Doroteo as these maiden 3-year-olds head for home after 3 quarters. In 1 minute 13.33 seconds, it's Doroteo. Yinzer toward the inside, tries to battle on. 1 furlong to go, and here comes the newcomer. It's Hypnus, now being produced by Brian Hernandez Jr., and then Pretty Capable and Cromwell toward the inside, but it's Hypnus, and Hypnus inching away. Cromwell into second, the rail. Hypnus, sharp debut on top, 1 by 3.
I know some people are going to say, Kenny McPeak's excited about this horse. Kenny McPeak's excited about every horse. So we will see. Hypnus is a horse, though, that I think if the speed comes back, I do think he's going to be a major factor in there. Chunk of Gold, the other one coming out of the series, out of the last race in the Risen Star. He closed some ground in there at a big price. You're going to get a much shorter price than Chunk of Gold this time around, though, so kind of tough to take in that respect. But he should get the same kind of pace setup that would help Hypnus, so it will help Chunk of Gold as well. As for Built, he's the horse who's running all 4 legs of the Louisiana Derby Series if he makes Saturday's finale. He won the Gun Runner, but I don't think he's improved any. And they were going to skip the Risen Star after he ran in the second leg of the series in the Lecomte and just train up to the Louisiana Derby. They decided to go ahead and cram him in there in the Risen Star. I don't think that worked out for him. Now they go to add blinkers. And to me, with a horse who has this much experience and has done as much running as he has, it feels a little desperate to me. I don't like the move of, they changed the schedule up and crammed that race in last time. Now they go with the blinkers. I just don't have good feelings about Built with all that going on. But if you look at his resume, he's been the most consistent horse in Louisiana for the winter.
You pretty much nailed my exact take as well in this spot. I wish I could challenge what you said, but the blinkers feel like they're, a last-ditch move or hoping to maybe get a little more out of them. I don't like a horse, fourth off the layoff already, and the lack of improvement. So to me, I respect this horse. I don't think the distance is kind of an issue for him. He's either maybe a horse that matured a little too early or is just maybe a cup below the top 3-year-olds in the country.
Not the greatest edition of the Louisiana Derby, but we've seen this race in recent years have a big impact. I mean, horses have come out of here 4 years in a row to land in the Derby Superfecta. So there's a reasonable chance somebody on your ticket in Louisville could be coming out of this race. But going into this year's Louisiana Derby, it's hard to look at any of these horses in the field and say that's a top 5, top 6, top 8 kind of contender for the Derby right now. But at the end of this mile and 3/16 and the importance this race has had on the trail in recent years, somebody probably will evolve into one of those spots, Scott.
Yeah, that is an interesting point. Which of these horses, I think we can be sure that if John Hancock or Hypnus run a big race, they're going to move up quite a bit in people's minds. Hypnus because he's done nothing wrong. John Hancock because he'll be undefeated. I think if a horse, a lightly raced horse like Furio or Vassimo or Caldera run a big race, they're going to move up quite a bit too in people's minds. But I'm with you at this point. I wouldn't have anybody on this list in a top 10 type situation going into Louisiana Derby.
Vassimo's once beaten. He's probably going to be twice beaten when the official ruling comes down with his positive test in his career debut. But right now on the ledger, he's 2 for 3 lifetime. His only defeat last time out in the Risen Star, they took a hold of him and didn't want to go after the speed in there because everybody was kind of worried about East Avenue, and the pace that he had that day. So breaking from the gate, the fastest horse out of the starting gate was Vassimo. And then they took a hold of him and didn't want to go with East Avenue. Well, since then, Irad Ortiz, who rides Vassimo, has gone to the front in every Kentucky Derby prep for the last month. So blinkers on, Irad riding the way he's riding right now. Do not be shocked if Vassimo comes out of here like a house of fire and goes right to the front in this race. And who knows? If he wires the field and he has that resume that's now 3 for 4 on paper, he's a horse who's going to get a lot of plaudits for Todd Pletcher, Irad Ortiz, the Louisiana Derby winner. Vassimo's a horse who could jump up into the discussion really quick. I'm not sold on him. I don't think he's that good. But I think the potential's there that he is going to go out and try to pop these again and provide even more speed to that front that we're talking about. If John Hancock wins this race, he will have won it with several challenges to have to be rebuffed, I would think.
You would think so. We've seen crazier things happen in the past, but no, Vassimo is What's that? Oh, I thought you said something. Vassimo is a
no, go ahead. We got a little slight delay working here.
Yeah, no, I apologize. I'm not sure whose it is, but anyway, Vassimo is a horse that I liked last time in that race, and I can't figure out what happened other than I think he lost focus, which makes the blinkers a good thing. I also think the finish at the end was a little bit of a figment of imagination while other horses were tiring. We both like the late pace ratings at Brisnet to tell that story somewhat. It looks like a race where nobody was really finishing well late, other than maybe Magnitude or Chunk of Gold. I don't think Vassimo was really finishing all that strong. So he's a tough read for me, JP.
All right, let's go from Fairgrounds now and turn our attention to Turfway Park. The racing at Turfway on Saturday for the Jeff Ruby features stakes up and down the line. In fact, 3 of them just for the 3-year-olds. You got the Animal Kingdom sprinting. You got the Rush Away going 2 turns. And then the Jeff Ruby for $777,000. Slot machines, 7s are wild for the main event. We're going to look at the Kentucky Cup Classic and the Bourbonnette Oaks. The 3 races on the card that go in succession, races 10, 11, and 12. We'll go first up to that 10th race on the program. It is the Kentucky Cup Classic, Grade 3, $300,000. This is a race that's got some horses who are veterans of the Turfway scene for sure. Hush of a Storm's the kind of horse who's been in all the big stakes races there. Encino is back in the stakes ranks locally. Verstappen is a horse who runs, it seems like, in all the big events at Turfway and has a lot of success there. And then Paros is a horse who won earlier in the season at Turfway. He won the Prairie Bayou Stakes, and I know Scott's got his eye on Paros. Let's take a look at his victory in that race in the Prairie Bayou, and then we'll get Scott's take on his top choice in the Kentucky Cup.
And Hush of a Storm is gearing up to the far outside. Top of the lane in the Prairie Bayou Stakes. Paros, who's never been better tackling Wadsworth, and noises off, has an opening along the inside. And here's one trying to fire through Dresden Row. And Hush of a Storm to the far outside. It's Paros with the lead. Dresden Row up the inside. Paros and Dresden Row. I think it's Paros, but he got tight on the line.
This looks like a race where you can find a bit of a price. Paros was 6-1 when winning that one in the Prairie Bayou. He's since gone to the turf down in Florida for a couple starts and comes back to Turfway Park. Scott, make the case for your horse Paros, who draws well in post 2.
Yeah, one of the more playable races on a day where there's a lot of playable races. And I think that's the case because I'm a little bit concerned, or I'm going to try to beat a couple of favorites, particularly Encino, who comes back to Turfway after trying the Gulfstream Park Mile last time. I don't get the sense that this was a plan by any stretch of the imagination. I think this is a kind of like adding the blinkers where we were discussing it with Bill, a hopeful move more. I know he's run well here. I don't think he's the same horse. And I think Verstappen is always a little vulnerable with his style. So I wanted to look for a bit of a price, and I thought Paros was going to get the right trip. I'm hoping we can put a line through the turf races because his race, the last two in Florida, because his Turfway race in the Prairie Bayou that we just showed was very strong. He came home very quickly, but ran in the early parts of the race some as well. He did get a favorable flow, but not necessarily an ideal trip. And he's 8 for 19, so we know when he's in the photo finish, he's got a very good chance of winning it. And I always like those types of horses, especially when they're going to be a good price. Always good to be on the inside as well at Turfway with a horse like this.
I'm going farther inside even, and at probably a bigger price. I like the rail horse in here, Highest Distinction. Last time, a little bit too close to a slow pace. There's going to be a realistic pace in here. This horse had good form in 2023. Started to get back in form a little bit, I thought, towards the tail end of last year and into this second off the layoff form cycle that I like a lot. Adam Beskitta rides rail horses really, really well, and I think this is one who might be able to pop at a price. I'm fishing, but there are a lot of races, as we've seen throughout the podcast, where I'm kind of conceding them to some of the favorites. So I've got to find some prices somewhere. Highest Distinction in the 10th, the Kentucky Cup Classic, will be probably the biggest price for me of the weekend. We'll see if we can't get that one in. To the Bourbonnette Oaks, we'll go next. Race number 11, $300,000 prep towards the Kentucky Oaks. A mile and a 16th here for the Bourbonnette Oaks. It'll be the race before the Jeff Ruby. We've got 14 entered, 12 can run, a couple also eligibles in this particular spot. Scott, who do you like in the Bourbonnette Oaks?
Well, we were talking that you had a lot of formful horses, but just came with a price. I've got a lot of prices, but I'm going to come with a favorite here in the Bourbonnette Oaks with number 11, White Rocks, who has done very little wrong in her career, JP. Debuted going 2 turns at Turfway with an outside draw, far outside draw, not an easy task. Didn't break well, still fought to the wire to finish 3rd, and then recently has figured out the gate issues and has been dominant on the front end. I think she's just going to speed to the lead again. I think she loves it here at Turfway Park, and I think she's going to be very tough to catch as the 3-1 morning line choice.
She had him spread eagled when we pick up the field in the Cincinnati Trophy, and nobody can get to her.
White Rocks absolutely dominating the Cincinnati Trophy Stakes. Here comes Admit picking up her tempo from second, and she's closing in very nicely. Top of the lane in the Cincinnati Trophy Stakes. White Rocks ambitiously sent to the front. She needs a furlong for the money. Admit is a major player, and she's trying to close in. They are no stranger to one another. White Rocks, Admit with 3 to find inside the 16th. White Rocks keeps on going all the way. White Rocks wins the Cincinnati Trophy Stakes wire to wire from Admit.
I almost feel bad showing that replay with the snow in the infield. I'm trying to think spring here in the Northeast. It's finally getting nice. And then we got to just be sucked back into winter watching that Cincinnati Trophy video. But I think she's definitely the filly to beat in here. She's got the 11 hole, but she's got enough speed to clear most of these. And nobody's going to go barreling out of here at a mile and 16th on the synth. There's not a lot of pace in the race. I think a filly who could get a good trip and one to watch in here is number 7, As Catch Can. I love the form cycle here. Form cycle is just a fancy word for their schedule or pattern of racing. She's second start off the layoff, and she goes sprint the route at the same time. Once upon a time, good trainers used to bring horses back who would come off a little bit of a layoff in a sprint race, and then they'd be ready to go long the second time. It's an old school form cycle. Jonathan Thomas, the trainer, is going that way with As Catch Can, and I like that. Frankie Dettori picks up the mount here, so I'm going to give As Catch Can the best chance of beating White Rocks in here, but to me, it's those two, and I would jump on that pair in terms of the multi-race wagers in the Bourbonnette Oaks. Let's go next to the Jeff Ruby. It is the feature race on Saturday and the feature race for the meet at Turfway Park. Again, $777,000 in the purse here for the Jeff Ruby. This is a race that produced Rich Strike to win the Kentucky Derby in 2022. It produced 2 fills to run second in the Derby in 2023. They look to get back on the beam after an off year last year, if you will. But can we find a Kentucky Derby horse in this 100-point prep? We're probably going to find 2 that get enough qualifying points to get into the Derby. Surface isn't a question when talking Kentucky Derby with Poster Scott. He won the Remsen Stakes on the dirt. The question for him in terms of surface will be this Saturday. Can Poster handle the synthetic? He's been training at Turfway all winter, so the assumption is he probably should be okay.
That is the assumption, and this is a really talented racehorse for Hardy and Ian Hardy and Godolphin. Has done very, very little wrong. I mean, 3 for 3 going 2 turns over 2 different surfaces, including a win in the Remsen as a 2-year-old. That's a strong resume considering a Keeneland allowance win is in there as well. And then they tried the dirt and the Sam F. Davis. Yeah, he got beat to run third and he got beat. But you look back, okay, we know that John Hancock's legitimate. We talked about him earlier. He got flattered by Owen Almighty running off the screen in the Tampa Bay Derby. And I don't even know if he had a fair shot at all in that race. You know, he broke fine, but he ended up having to make 4-wide middle move in a race that was dominated by those 2 front runners in John Hancock and Owen Almighty. So it's really just a gambling question to me. I think he's the most talented horse. It's kind of interesting that they opted to run in this race. I guess I don't know if it's a thought, with Godolphin, they're not thinking about the money. I don't know if they think it's, this horse necessarily isn't a dirt horse after watching him. I don't get that impression. Maybe they just think it's their easiest way to get, 100 points or get to Kentucky, but he's done, he's done very little wrong. He's hard to knock, but he's just not probably going to be a great bet.
Yeah, he's going to be a shortish price in here. You got Godolphin, you got Juddmonte with Final Gambit. You've got some big barns represented here historically throughout the sport of thoroughbred racing. Final Gambit for Juddmonte's kind of an interesting horse. Really, I didn't think much of his race February 15th at Turfway, kind of when it happened in terms of, Kentucky Derby trail. I'm scouting and I'm not looking at him necessarily as a Derby horse, but I went back and looked at that race a little closer for the purpose of this race. And it was an impressive rally. I know the speed figure's lousy. It's a 64 buyer figure, but he was absolutely shot from a cannon the last 1/8 of a mile in that race. Final Gambit's a little bit interesting. Luan Machado riding for Brad Cox. We'll see how that one fits in this particular spot. But, Poster's the name horse. We know what he can do in here on the dirt. Innovators run well, almost won the Lecomte on the main track for D. Wayne Lucas. Lucas will be looking to get his second Derby qualifier. Of course, last week he had American Promise win the Virginia Derby. So maybe the 89-year-old Lucas has another ace in his sleeve with Innovator. We'll find out. If Innovator's to run well, he's going to go to the front. That's what he does, and he tries to run you off your feet. So there could be some pace in this race. California Burrito wired the John Battaglia Memorial in the local prep race for this. So Innovator, California Burrito, Baby Max was right up on the pace and adds blinkers coming back from that race in the John Battaglia. I actually think there's going to be a fair pace in this for 1 1/8 at Turfway. Who did you wind up with?
Well, Final Gambit, if there is a fair pace, is interesting because I'm not that worried about the speed figures. He's still learning. He's a quirky horse still, but like you said, he came home full of run that day. I'm going to go with a horse that I'm going to need to hope that the pace is a little less contentious, maybe than it could look on paper, which I think could play out at 1.125 and the difference in riders and such. But I like Charlie's to Blame at a price in here, Jeremy. Ton of Blame that took 3 starts to break his maiden, but been really good since. Two-turn turf races, including a win in the Kitten's Joy. They've both come on the front end. I don't necessarily watch this horse, though, and think he needs the lead. I'm very hopeful he can relax in the pocket. There's a lot of questions to answer like there are with Poster, but he's going to be a big price, and I'm willing to gamble on those questions with the price at 15-1 on the morning line.
Juan Hernandez rode him to the maiden win 2 starts back at Del Mar. He'll be back aboard, coming in from California. Charlie's to Blame. Let's take a look at his turf win in the Kitten's Joy.
Second, looking to get off the inside. Maui Strong needs a seam. Outside of him, Tiz Dashing, and they're on their way home. It's Charlie's to Blame. He's 1/8 of a mile out and 2 on top. From between horses, Maui Strong charging to try to go get him. They come past the 8th pole. Maui Strong tries to get Charlie's to Blame. Charlie's to Blame and Maui Strong. Charlie's to Blame just in front. Maui Strong surging. Charlie's to Blame. Charlie second, looking to get off the inside. Maui Strong.
Top pick in there for Scott. Charlie's to Blame in the Jeff Ruby at Turfway. Again, reminder, $10 money back special on the Jeff Ruby as well as the Louisiana Derby. When you bet with First Bet and Express Bet, get up to $10 back in your wagering account if your win bet finishes second or third in any of those Kentucky Derby prep races. So be sure to take advantage of that, and also make sure that you opt into the promotions when you are in your wagering account with First Bet and Express Bet in order to take advantage of all of that. A big weekend of racing. We didn't mention Laurel Park's got a couple stakes races that could have Black-Eyed Susan and also Preakness implications. Private term stakes being held this weekend in Maryland, so that's another one to keep an eye out for. Oaklawn Park's got the Essex Handicap, the final local prep towards the Oaklawn Handicap coming up later in the meet. Good field lining up for the Essex as well. So should be a lot of great racing this weekend. Scott, I'll give you the final word.
Yeah, very big weekend, especially in terms of the big races on the first Friday and Saturday in May in Kentucky. We're going to finally start to maybe separate the Derby horses, probably more the next couple of weeks, the top contenders. But the picture will start to become a little clearer with that in the Oaks. Really looking forward to seeing the return of Sierra Leone as well.
All right. I'll be back on Tuesday with the It's Official podcast, recapping this big weekend of racing. And, of course, the First Call podcast each and every Friday, handicapping 8 stakes races from around the country. Next week, he gets really deep in the Kentucky Derby pools as we get set for races like the Florida Derby next weekend. So a great week of racing to come up, a great weekend here in the immediate future. So good luck to everybody playing with First Bet and Express Bet. And on behalf of my partner, Scott Shapiro, and our main man, Jeff Siegel, hopefully we'll have him back with us very soon. I'm Jeremy Plonk. Have a great weekend, everybody. Good luck.